Okay, next up basically is setting up your servo arms, basically getting them 90, that kind of thing. Now for this build I am going to be using my Airtronics radio. Okay, so I've done many other setups on other helis using other radios. It's all very similar, so basically what I'll be talking about is not so much showing a huge amount of setup on the radio, but basically the steps to go through, getting your rods parallel, getting your arms 90, etc., etc. So if you're using another radio, and this is one of the first heli builds for you, I recommend watching other builds I've done using other radios if you want to see how to do that. But the principles are all the same. Okay, so on the Airtronics, I'm going to go into the system menu, and for type, I'm going to set for CP3F, okay, and that's a CCPM swash plate, and it has the elevator in the front of the heli. Okay, it's the elevator and the aileron and pitch on the rear. We'll see how that works out. Again, depending on servos you use, which way they turn, other things, this may or may. The idea behind this on the SD10G is that by getting the servos and the orientations as they are in the heli, you may not have to do as much servo reversing and messing around in the swash menu. Okay, so go ahead and get that set, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to go into the F mode menu, and we want to go to the stick monitor, and we want to get our throttle stick at center. So I'm going to move that until everything reads 0, 0. Actually, I'm going to go to the SX monitor because it shows you very well. So let's see, as you see, I'm going to do this a little upside down, but if the stick's off, you see how everything on aileron, elevator, and everything is moved. You can do this on other radios as well. You could also, if you wanted to, just go into pitch curve, and you can see your in and out, okay? And in and out for me right now is -3, so let me adjust that. There we go. In and out is 0, 0 on a linear pitch curve, okay? Same thing on other radios, DX, Futaba, whatever. Another thing you can do if you don't want to mess around and worry about this is just set your pitch curve that you're setting up in as 50% flat across the board, all right, or 0 flat across the board, whichever radio you're using there. That way, wherever you move the stick, the servos won't move. The idea, again, we're trying to find neutral here for the servos at center stick. No trims, no nothing. Now, on some radios, you probably should disable your knobs here, okay, because these things are, on some radios, are called hover pitch trim, and what they do is they move that center point up and down, and thus can really mess you up as you're doing setup. So Futaba, I think they're on by default. This radio, they're on by default. DX radios, they're not, but I would go ahead and make sure you disable those, or at least get them centered up so you're not seeing any interaction there. Super important. By the way, high-tech radios is on by default too. Okay, so again, even though I'm using the Sanwa here for this setup, let's go ahead and turn on. Okay, make sure our throttle stick, oop, I gotta lower my throttle stick and recenter. Okay. Alright, so we're on, gonna turn the receiver on. Okay, so here's the deal. Now the manual shows a couple things. It shows using servo wheels that have actually been trimmed so the arms don't rub. So you can use servo wheels if you want. What I mean by that is, let me get a servo wheel. When these go on here and you get them all set up, you'll be trimming away the plastic here, so there's no possibility as the servo wheel turns, it rubs on the links. Okay? Now, the idea behind servo wheels is if you don't like using sub trim, you can drill your own holes and get everything 90. I don't worry about using sub trim. I use it all the time on my helicopters. So for me, now the other thing is the manual says 29mm spacing, and actually direct from velocity, and after measuring the balls on the bell cranks here, I saw 28. Okay, so for these Inno servos, I don't really have a lot of choices. The wheels are humongous, don't need them that big. I could drill my own if I wanted to. These Innos use the same spline as Futaba, so looking for some Futaba stuff. But I couldn't really find anything that had 28mm total spacing, except these arms here, these second in holes. Let me make sure it's the second in holes here. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Yeah, the second in holes on mine are actually 28.5. Really weird, but they're slightly over 28mm. No big deal. Okay, so if you're going to use sub trim, one of the things you really want to do is get your servos moving in the correct directions first. Okay, because if you use sub trim and then find out later as you're doing the rest of the CCPM setup, you got a servo going the wrong direction, you reverse it, you're going to have to go in and change your sub trim again. If you don't mind that, that's okay, that's fine too. But again, I'm at 0 stick, move the servos around, make sure everything's working. And so I want to rotate my arm and find the closest to 90 I can get. And that's going to be on that one. Okay, we'll look for closest 90 I can get here. Okay, that looks not bad. Let's rotate it. Again, if you got 4-star horns, sometimes you can get even closer to 90. That looks pretty good there. So I think I'm going to go with that. Okay, but we're not quite 90. Now, I'm not going to show the other side yet. By the way, real quick, what I've got plugged in. This servo on this side is aileron. This one is pitch. And this one's elevator. So depending on the radio you're using, get those plugged in right. For sure, you need this to be elevator. These two here, if you get them reversed, you can fix that in the radio swash plate setup. Anyway, so that's pretty close to 90. But what I don't want to do is put in sub trim now until I check to see which way things are working. Because again, I may have to change it if I reverse it. So this is pretty easy to figure out without the linkage rods on. Let's go all the way up and pitch. All right. So what we want to do is see that the swash plate goes up. Alright, so this is the elevator servo, and it's going to connect to this lower bell crank, and this one's going to push at the top and pull at the bottom. So as I can see, if I follow that servo, that's full pitch, this elevator arm is going up. Right? So that's good. This servo is moving in the right direction. If I go all the way down, it's going to pull the bell crank this way, it's going to be down, it's going to pull elevator down. So we're cool on that servo. Alright, so now let's look at this one, and this one's my pitch servo. So I'm going to go full pitch, and again, I want the bell crank to turn this. Okay, now you see we have an issue here. On this bell crank, because it leans toward the rear, if this rod's going to push, it's going to make it go down, and I went full pitch. So I need to reverse this servo. Alright, so I'm going to go into my radio, and I'm going to go to the surface menu on Airtronics, and I'm going to go to all the way to the pitch servo, which is channel 6, and I'm going to reverse that. Okay, now it's reversed. Let's see what we get. Pitch all the way down, there's center stick, pitch all the way up. Arm pushes, this bell crank goes up, that means my swash plate's going to go up. Okay, let's take a look at this final servo here. Center my stick for now, I just want to get things going in the right direction. Alright, so now I'm going to go full up. We want to see what happens. This rod's going to push to this bell crank, and it's going to push this one up. So we have this one going up, we have this one pulling going up, and we have the elevator pushing on this bottom ball here, right here. So this one's pushing this way and going up. We now have everything working in the right direction. Now, if you find that, again, what we wanted to get was all 3 servos moving in the right direction. I only had to reverse one. But if you find that after reversing one, let's say all the arms are going down, then you'd go into your swash menu and make that a positive to a negative or vice versa. And so now we can go back to our center stick. We go back to a pitch curve here. Alright, and go 0 in, 0 out. Okay, we're at center stick, and now we can go ahead and sub trim. So for instance, on my elevator servo, by the way, I do have that in wrong, so 1 second. I have my elevator servo in the wrong connector. Okay. Okay, so now I can go, and you can see I'm almost 90, so now I'm going to go into sub trim, and again, depending on your radio, it doesn't matter which one you do, but if you're going to use sub trim, that's what you want to do. Now on the Airtronics, it's called CENT, or centering. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change elevator and get that 90. Okay, and I just kind of eyeball it, look down the rows of dots, look down the center of the servo and the servo screws. You can get it pretty darn close. Okay, so that one's centered. So we're going to do that for all of the servos now. And then we're going to go ahead and put our balls on. So you're going to get the balls out that have the nuts in this bag. You're going to put 2 on each servo at the 28mm position. Get your servos at 90. If you're going to make wheels, go ahead and make wheels. And then we're going to come back and start making up the links.